My name is Rick Petherbridge, and I'm here to talk tennis. And the subject that we're going to talk about today is whether the Grand Slam events, if they went from a 5-set format that they have right now to a 3-set format, whether that would be more entertaining and in the long run, just a better for tennis fans and for tennis overall. So what I want to do is I want to sort of look at each of the different formats and see what the pros and cons are, and how tennis and tennis fans and entertainment in general would benefit uh, if we moved from a 3-set format from the current 5-set format that we have now. So um, let's start with the 5-set format. One of the things about a 5-set format is that it very much rewards players that are fit and have a lot of stamina. So a lot of times when you get down to a 4th set in a match or a 5th set in a match, it's not necessarily about which player can play the best, but it's which one is more fit, has more stamina, and in a 4th set can play better. There's also a second element that I think really benefits players in a 5-set match, not just the physical stamina, but also sort of the mental focus. And I think it is harder to focus through a 5-set match, right? It's much more likely that the average player is going to have a lapse in his focus during that 5-set match and may lose one set just because their mental focus sort of slips during that period. And when you look at the last 5 or 10 years of Grand Slams, you see that 3 or 4 players have totally dominated Grand Slam events over the last 10 or 15 years. And of course, those 4 players are Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, and Murray. So the issue is, given that that's what happens when you have a 5-set format, would it be better for tennis? Would it be a more entertaining tournament for tennis if you went to a 3-set format? So let's talk for a minute about the 3-set format and how that benefits certain types of players. And I think you can easily argue, and I think the evidence clearly supports, that if you went to a 3-set format, you'd have a lot more different players that were able to win Grand Slam events. And it's easy to make that comparison because you can sort of look and see over the last 10 years, players that have won Masters events, which are 3-set formats, versus players that have won Grand Slam events. And you can see very clearly, if you just go back 3 or 4 years, that there are a lot of players that have been able to win tennis Masters events that have not been able to win Grand Slam events. And let me give you a list of some of these players, right? So Medvedev is one of those players. Zverev is another one of those players. Tsitsipas is another one of those players. Dimitrov is another one of those players. Khachanov, Tsonga, Isner, Ferrer, Berdych, Sock. These are all guys that in the last 10 years were able to win Masters events, but in their entire career were never able to win a Grand Slam event. And then you have to get to the next issue. Is tennis more interesting? Is it more entertaining when you have more players from different countries that have a real chance at winning a Grand Slam event? And if you decide that that larger number of players, that more diverse number of players, makes tennis more interesting, right? So that, you know, a player like Fognini, right? He's from Italy. Or a player like Medvedev, who's from Russia, right? They haven't had a Grand Slam winner in over 10 or 15 years, but in the Tennis Masters Series, these players have won. So from just a pure entertainment standpoint, and what is going to attract the most fans to tennis, I would argue that having more players from different countries having a legitimate chance of winning an event is going to create more interest, right? So tennis fans do come to each tournament or watch each tournament on TV with their favorites, right? My favorite is Federer. Everybody has their own favorite, but it just makes sense that there are plenty of fans that have favorites that aren't either Nadal or Federer or Djokovic. And the way the current format is set up with 5 sets, we're not really going to have Grand Slam winners that aren't one of those 3 guys, at least until they get too old to play. So from a standpoint of making tennis the most fan, favorite as possible, or attracting the most fans to tennis, I think you have a real issue in sort of saying, would tennis be more interesting if we move to a 3-set format? There's also another issue besides just a number of champions coming from different countries and having different playing styles. It also has to do with the time involved, right? So look, a 5-set match generally is going to go at least 3 hours. And we know that some of these 5-set matches go over 5 hours. Well, in today's age, it's hard for most fans to watch a sporting event that's going to last that long. We're used to sporting events that last 2 hours, whether it's a basketball game or whatever sport that you're interested in. So that's another issue that tennis fans want to address, right? Is the 3-set format just more friendly towards either fans coming to tournaments and watching them in person, or people watching them on TV, right? That today, and how busy we are and how many different things we have going on, is it practical? Is it realistic to expect fans to sort of sit and watch a 3 or 4 hour match, right? And look, tennis isn't the only sport that's addressing this issue. I think baseball is definitely also very concerned, right? That baseball games take longer than 2 hours and frequently go much longer than that. And as a result, baseball has lost popularity to other sports like basketball that are shorter and more entertaining. So does it make sense? Would tennis be more successful? Would it be more entertaining and more profitable if we went to the 3-set format? And where, the average fan could say, look, I want to see this final, but I don't have 5 hours to watch it. I'll set aside an hour and a half or 2 hours, but I really don't want or have the time to spend more than that on an event. So, and I'm sure in terms of television contracts and other things that it would benefit tennis, given the trends today that we have shorter attention spans and our lives are busier and more full than they were with social media and all of that stuff. That in the long term, for tennis's success, it may make more sense to have the Grand Slam events go to 3 sets. Now, as a tennis fan, I can think of a couple of different things, right? I I can say, well, you know, every once in a while, even though a 5 set match is long, um, it's really it takes on this sort of epic drama. So you think of, for me, the first match I always think of is the Australian final between Djokovic and Nadal, right? Where they fought so hard for 5 sets, and you know the match lasted 5 hours and 30 minutes, and it was not just, you know, extremely dramatic, um, but also it was sort of like a, you know, tennis players were getting more respect, right? People were seeing how fit Nadal and Djokovic were, and how difficult it was to win a Grand Slam match. And you know, people were saying, "Look, you know, run a marathon in 2 hours and 10 minutes," right? These guys were, you know, playing extremely physical tennis, and they did it, you know, without a break for like, you know, 5.5 hours. On the other side of that, you know, the con of it is that a lot of times these matches are boring, right? So look, if you're watching a 5 set match and one player wins the first set 6-1 and wins the second set 6-1, do you really want to see a third set that's likely to be a 6-1, 6-0 lopsided win? So for every time a 5th set match or a 5 set match is really dramatic, I think there's more times when it's kind of you know, the outcome is already done, right? So you know, when you're watching a match and so you see someone win easily 6-1, 6-0, 6-2, and they do that for 2 sets in a row, it's almost a foregone conclusion that uh, the third set's going to be the same, and you know, why bother watching it? And I think a lot of people do turn off their TVs, right? And I've definitely done that when you know, I just saw enough of a match to convince me that there was no way the person that was losing the match could come back, and it was just too lopsided. So you know, this is just one issue that I think, in terms of the future of tennis, it's interesting to sort of talk about and see whether it makes sense to hold on to this old tradition of 5 set matches, or does it make more sense? And look, you know, there's a lot of cases. The Masters events used to be 5 set matches, and they've moved to 3 set matches. And you know, I think they're more successful as a result. So it's important for tennis to ask these questions and to, you know, sort of evolve and get better and more entertaining and more fan friendly as time goes by.